Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be explaining how I attached the motor to the swing arm and as well as how I tested the entire thing using the motor and battery. So over here is just a CAD model that is designed on how to attach the motor onto the swing arm itself. Instead of putting the motor straight onto it, which I didn't have space for, I cut the rear axle part of it off and then used the flat flush end to lay the motor against using a plate. And then the other channel part type pieces are just there for support. So I bought the T8F chain, which was the same that came with the motor, just to make everything work together. It's the same as the sprocket as well. And here's a photo of everything lining up. I put it straight and drew a mark on where the line went. So I cut this piece out of a 16 gauge metal plate and made sure the dimensions were right according to the motor and where I made the mark on the chain. So here's me just tacking that plate onto the swing arm itself. I didn't get much footage of me cutting the rear end of the swing arm off, but I made sure that the cut was flat and both sides were even and flush, and then I grinded everything down to make sure it was flat so that the weld would stay flush with the plate itself. Here's me just testing it on my practice plate before going ahead and tacking it right onto the swing arm itself. Up next was to just drill the holes. I lined up the motor wherever it would go, and then used Sharpie to mark down the spots that lined up with the holes that were already in the motor. And then up next was just drilling it. Drilling it through metal is such a pain, and it takes a long time. After a while, the drill started to squeak really loudly, and it was bothering everyone even inside the house. So I decided to use some lubricant to try to make it a little less frictiony, and then I decided to use just Vaseline, which actually ended up working really well, and it cut through it a lot faster, which was really surprising. And I ended up using Vaseline on the other 3 holes as well. But each one takes around 2 minutes, and even though this is a sped up version of it, it took 15 to 20 minutes just to cut through it, and the drill battery died in between, so it's such a pain to cut through all 4 holes. These are just some shots of the swing arm and motor after everything had been screwed in. I just used the screws that came with the motor itself. After I measured everything out, all that was left to do was just to go back and weld the plate onto the swing arm itself. So I just went back, added some intermittent welds, and just made sure everything was a lot stronger. Unfortunately, this caused the plate to warp a little bit just from the heat. But surprisingly, I was able to fix this just like a forge by just using a hammer and just smacking it back onto a flat surface until everything was just straight again. Once the welds were secure, I went ahead and put the wheel back onto the swing arm, and here you can see how everything's lined up and ready for the chain to go on. I didn't get a video of me actually cutting the chain itself, so here's just a reenactment of me doing it. What you have to do is use an angle grinder to cut the heads of the axles that go through the chain, and then use a hammer and chisel to tap it down. So I just clamped it down, cut off the heads, and then moved on to tapping it away right on the concrete. If you tap it on the table itself, there's too much vibration, and this causes a lot of the energy from tapping to go away, which meant that I needed to tap it on the concrete or the axles wouldn't go through. So the sprocket and motor lined up pretty well, but the chain was still a little too long, and you can see right here that it was really easy to install and it had a lot of slack to it. So even though I was able to pick up the entire swing arm and rotate the wheel properly using just the chain, which it worked pretty well, but I was afraid that if the wheel was moving at higher speeds, the chain would just fall off. So I needed to shorten the chain and make sure everything was more tight.
Would break. It won't work.
Here's the actual shot of me cutting just the head of the chain off. I just used the cutting wheel and then went ahead and just just grinded away at it. So I installed the chain one more time, this time actually making sure to tighten the axle spacers, and then I just checked to see if everything was fine. It was still a little loose, but it was enough to rotate the wheel with the chain and move everything smoothly. The last thing I had to do was just connect everything up to the motor controller and battery, and make sure the motor is able to just turn the wheel properly. So I went ahead and wired everything up, and then the last thing is just the battery, which I went ahead and did.
Dude, shut up. What am I supposed to do? Alright, can I turn it on?
Is that reversed?
Yeah.
Alright.
Do it slow. Slow. Oh, jeez.
Just clipping the thing because gravity's pulling the chain down. Yeah.
No, that's chill.
Ready? Hold it.
Yeah. Doing slow.
Yeah.
Alright, chill. Something's still clipping.
Yeah. Doesn't sound good. Can you just hold it like that?
Yeah, but it's held by the welds.
That's fine.
Chill. You're scared. Chill.
When we held it straight, the wheel was working fine, but the chain itself was way too loose, as you can see right here. I don't know why it ended up loosening. I'll have to make sure it doesn't loosen when I tighten everything in finally.
Maybe.
No, I feel like it was this loose. I just need to tighten it more.
And then.
Alright, that's it for this video. I'll make sure to tighten the chain before the next one. And in the next video, I'll try to attach the swing arm to the actual frame, and maybe attach the shock absorber if it comes in from Amazon.